Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm Madeline.
And I'm Andrea.
And this is episode 165. Fruity Knitting is your gateway to knitting inspiration from all around the world, as well as some extra snippets of travel, history, and storytelling that we hope adds joy to your life and brings a smile to your face.
And it's lovely to be back here with you all again. Madeline and I have recently returned from hosting our second knitting retreat with Marie Wallen at Bovey Castle. So that's in County Devon in the UK. And it went really, really well. Everybody was very happy. They were very excited to spend time with Marie Wallen, and Madeline and I were just simply thrilled that the whole thing was a big success.
Yeah.
And we actually had an incredible globe-spanning group of people. We had participants coming from 12 different countries, and it's such a fantastic mix of countries. I just want to tell you the countries. So we had participants coming from Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Norway, Canada, the UK, Israel, many corners of the US, and as far down south as Australia and New Zealand. So I think that's an incredible mix of countries. And Madeline and I really, really enjoyed hosting the retreats. And Ryan, who's Madeline's husband, he joined us as well, and he looked after the non-knitting partners. He did a really great job for that, and people really enjoyed having him there as well. Actually, Ryan runs ultra marathons, and one of the husbands was also a runner, so they got up very early each morning and went for a morning run together. Ryan also took the group on hikes in the moors and even to the local pub one evening. So we were super grateful to have Ryan's help, and it was really nice to have him just join us as part of the Fruity Knitting team.
Yeah.
You really enjoy having him come along on work trips now, don't you?
Always. It's the one downside of our work trips is that I don't get to have him around. So I'm really grateful that he takes time off to join and help out.
And it actually is a big deal because he's taking off his holiday time from work to do it. So we're very appreciative. Okay, so that's a little quick update of what's been going on behind the scenes. And now onto our program today. We have two special guests. We're very excited to welcome back the German designer Melanie Berg, who has recently released her new book, Shawl Love. And apart from just having beautiful designs, the book also introduces a brilliant knitting GPS system for reading patterns called Romaps. So this is something that developed from Melanie's own need for mental clarity during her cancer treatment. And it helps knitters who are experiencing brain fog, ADHD, or just general mental fatigue to be able to follow complex patterns more easily without just feeling overwhelmed by all of the simultaneous instructions. I actually think it's a brilliant idea, and I think we'd all benefit from it, regardless of whether we've got brain fog or not. And Melanie has also recently launched a new in-depth online knit class, which is an 8-hour video course, and it's available in both German and English. And her goal here was to create a very clear step-by-step path that removes all of the guesswork from knitting complex designer level pieces. And this course is aimed at both new and rusty knitters so that they can really achieve professional results with their knitting. So we had a lot of topics to cover in the interview, and I think we covered them well, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Now, last year we visited the John Arbon Textiles Open Mill Weekend, where I interviewed one of the vendors called Eleanor Jane Studio. So Eleanor's a local artist there who combines her love for letter writing and painting by creating gorgeous, whimsical, hand-painted stationery. So she's also a knitter and a crocheter, and she featured a lovely range of hand-painted carns designed specifically for us fibercraft enthusiasts. So I think you'll really enjoy that little vendor/makers interview. On top of that, Mum and I have updates on our own knitting projects to share. Mum started a brand new design by none other than Norah Gaughan, made specifically for our yarn range, so that's exciting. And Mum's also including a short tutorial. So I think we should start with you.
Yes, so I've been working on a new project. Here it is here. It is especially created for our, as Madeline said, for our new yarn range, Fruity Knitting Sport, and it's a cabled sweater by Norah Gaughan.
Yep. Very exciting.
It's super exciting. Okay, so I mean, we feel very honoured that Norah Gaughan is designing with our yarns, and I totally love what she's doing. This is going to be our featured design for the knitting retreat with Norah Gaughan that's coming up in June in the Austrian Alps. So if you're not familiar with Norah Gaughan, she's the author of the Knitted Cable Source Book. She's authored a lot of books, but I think this particular book is an essential resource for anybody who's interested in knitting cables. So it has about 150 cable stitch patterns in it. Most of them are Norah's own inventions. And the book also explains Norah's system for mixing and matching cables within a design. So if you have a design and you think that a cable is a little bit too busy and you want to simplify it, the book shows you how to do that. Or if you want to make it more complex and ornate, you can do that as well. Or if you just want to take that one out and put in your favorite cable design, it shows you step by step how to do that. Or if you have
endless possibilities.
Or if you have just a plain stocking stitch sweater and you want to put in a cable, it shows you how to do that without changing the gauge, so that in the end, the design will still fit you. And this is the topic of the workshops that we're going to do with Norah Gaughan at the Austrian Alps retreat. And I'm super excited about this because this is something that I really want to learn myself. Now, if you are a participant who has signed up and you're coming to this this retreat, I can imagine that you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed and think, oh my goodness, am I going to be good enough for this? And I want to really reassure you, because Norah has said to us quite a few times to make sure that all the knitters know that it doesn't matter whatever level you're at, the workshop will meet you and then build your skills from there. So you're going to learn a lot, but it's also going to be a lot of fun. So relax and enjoy it. And this is actually a really good time for me to let you know that we've had a last minute
cancellation.
My words are just gone today. We've had a last minute cancellation for a knitter and their non-knitting partner. So it is short notice, but if you think you're able to arrange things in time and you'd enjoy the workshops with Norah Gaughan, we would really love to have you join the retreat with your non-knitting partner. There'll be plenty of activities for your non-knitting partner to enjoy while we're busy in our workshops, and Ryan is also going to be there to help look after them. So the retreat runs from the 14th to the 19th of June, and you can find the full details of the retreat at artisan-retreats.com, and there you can also fill out a registration form. So let us know as soon as possible if you're interested. Okay, so back to this design, I want to show you a photo of the completed version that Norah has already knitted up. So here it is. The cable pattern repeat for this design, as you can see, is quite large. It has only 2 repeats to make up the full length of the garment. And each strand or column within the cable is 4 stitches wide, and that gives the cable a smooth, swooping, sculptured look. It features circles with X's inside the circles, and this main circle X motif is framed by a rope cable on each side of the panel, and the rope is worked in 2 steps. You cross 4 stitches over 2 stitches and then you repeat it in the same direction. So it takes both steps to complete the full twist of the rope. And then on the sleeves, the 2 rope cables are mirrored and they run down the center of the sleeve. So Norah Gaughan has knitted her version in our dark green shade, Billabong. And although it's a relatively dark colour, the wide cable strands and the large pattern repeat still allows the design to stand out clearly. If you're somebody who likes to wear fairly understated, elegant clothes, but at the same time you really want to knit complex looking cables, then the trick is just to use a dark colour, and that calms the whole garment down and makes it look more elegant or understated. So I think this design would actually look really good in the black opal or even the mulberry dusk. That would just make it very smooth and elegant.
Yeah.
But if you want more of a look at me vibe, you can do it in the kingfisher, which is what I've done, or the lily pilly, which is the bright pink. Or if you really want to be wild, you could do the wild mint.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about the construction. I need your helping hands.
Yes.
This is a super interesting construction, one that I've never done before because it has fake set-in sleeves. If you want to know what a set-in sleeve is, it's the typical kind of sleeve shaping that you have in a jacket, in a suit jacket. And it's a very well-fitting sleeve cap, and it suits every body type. So this is worked top down in the round in one piece. And what you do is you start off at the back here. You cast on for the back and you knit down for about 5 centimeters in the pattern. And then you pick up stitches here for the 2 front shoulder pieces and you work them for about 5 centimeters. And what that does is that it gives you about 10 centimeters here, 5 on the front, 5 in the back. And that measurement there is the typical measurement of a set-in sleeve cap, which is great. So then what you're going to do is pick up stitches across the top of the sleeve cap. And you'll be working at this stage only in rows. So you'll be knitting across the front shoulder, front left shoulder, across the left shoulder cap, across the back, across the right shoulder cap, and across the front shoulder piece. And then you work back again and like this, round and round. And then at the same time as you're doing that, you're going to do a little bit of shaping, increasing here so that you get a nice curve on the front neckline. And you're going to be doing increases here, which is where you would normally have the sleeve, the set-in sleeve seam for a sleeve cap. So you'll be doing it here and here on both sides. So you work that back and forward until you've done your front neck shaping to about here and you're ready to join the front together. So then you cast on stitches at the base of the front neck, which would be here, and then you're completely in the round and you continue working in the round until the underarms. Now, most people are familiar with a yoke, the shaping of a yoke. So you cast on your stitches and you just work in a spiral round and round and you gradually increase, and all your increases are evenly spaced around. So that's how you increase for a yoke shape. If you want to increase for a raglan shape, you'll do your increases in vertical lines here, 2 on the front, not vertical, diagonal, and 2 mirrored on the back. But for a fake set-in sleeve, you're doing your increases here, where the seam would normally be. So at first, you're doing more increases on the sleeve cap, but then as you come down to where the bust is, you're doing more increases down here. So that's the difference. You're just putting your increases in different places, and then you get different shaped arms, which is super cool. So as I said, then when it's joined in the round, you work round and round and round until you've gone down to the underarms, and that's where you're going to separate the sleeves from the body. If you hold that there. So then you put the sleeve stitches on hold on a piece of yarn and you cast on stitches underneath so that you're joining the back to the front, and then you're going to work the body in a spiral round and round all the way down to the hem. And I'm nearly there, you can still see. I've got a little bit to go. And then once you've done that, you come back here. I'll just come back here again. I've got a fantastic assistant. And you pick up the stitches that you've got on hold for your sleeve, and you will also make some stitches here. So I'll create some stitches here, and then I work the sleeve in a spiral, which is I've done here, and there I've almost finished that as well. So this kind of working the sleeves and the body is exactly the same as all other top-down designs. It's just the beginning bit which is different. So I think that's super, super interesting. And this fake set-in sleeve is also what Norah is going to teach us in the workshops at the Austrian Alps retreat, which is very exciting. So the design is called Pomegranate. Now, I haven't asked Norah why she's called it Pomegranate, but I'm just guessing. And I think it's because of these circle shapes here. I haven't bought a pomegranate for a very long time, but I think if you do cut them, in half. Maybe you have...
They're round like a half circle, you mean?
Yeah, but you cut them in half, you might have some kind of cross in the middle.
Ah.
So that's why I'm assuming she's called it. But I will ask her and then I'll tell you in the next episode. But as you can see, this design has large striking cables, and I want to show you how I worked these cables without a cable needle. So this is a technique that I learnt maybe 15 years ago, and it totally changed how quickly and efficiently I knit cables. Of course, there's nothing wrong with knitting slowly, but if a technique feels too slow and cumbersome, you're not going to use it or you're not going to do it, and that's a shame. But once you get the hang of knitting cables without a cable needle, it doesn't interrupt your flow, and you can actually knit quite complex looking cables really comfortably. So for me, I love to be mentally challenged with each new project, and I like to learn new things and create different sort of effects, but I don't want to forfeit the pleasure of knitting. And for me, the pleasure of knitting is really the consistent movement of using two hands. And as we know scientifically, it's using both hemispheres of the brain, and it has a really relaxing effect, calming effect on your nervous system, which I find I need more and more. So I've actually done a short tutorial showing you how I've worked the cables in this design without a cable needle. By the way, this design is first of all available for our retreat participants, but after the retreat, Norah will publish this design in her Ravelry shop, and you'll also be able to buy kits for it on our website.
Yeah.
And I will put a link to this tutorial, so if you do want to knit it, you can also do it without a cable needle. So the tutorial's coming up now, and straight after that we're going to meet Eleanor Jane in our Makers segment. This design is called Pomegranate, and it's by Norah Gaughan, and she designed it with our very own yarn, the Fruity Knitting Sport, and this colourway is Kingfisher. So there are three types of cables in this design. There's a two-step right leaning cable, there it is here, and then a two-step left leaning cable, there, and a 4-stitch over a 4-stitch crossover with a 2 purl stitches in the middle, and that's this thing here, this cable here. So I'm going to show you first how to make the cables with a cable needle so that you can see exactly how the stitches are being arranged, and then I'll repeat it without a cable needle. First of all, I'm going to show you how to do the left leaning cable. So this column of 4 stitches here, you can see is slowly moving left there. Each of these columns has got 4 stitches in it, and this column here has to move 2 more stitches to the left so that it lines up exactly with this column of 4 stitches underneath it. So if you were going to use a cable needle, you would take your cable needle and put the 4 stitches of that column on the needle and hold that to the front of your knitting. Then you would knit the next 2 stitches, and then you would knit the 4 stitches from the cable needle. And there you can see I've moved this strand or column of 4 stitches across to the left over 2 more stitches. So now I'm going to show you how to do the same thing but without a cable needle. So when you're ready to knit the cable, you move the yarn to the back, and with the yarn at the back you slip the first 4 stitches, so they're the stitches of your column or strand, purlwise onto the right hand needle, and next you're going to knit the next 2 stitches. Now you're going to bring the left hand needle to the front and slide the left hand needle through the 4 slipped stitches there onto the left hand needle tip. This is the slightly tricky bit. You push all of the stitches up close to the tips of the needles, and you pinch with your thumb and forefinger the base of those stitches, and now you're going to slide the right hand needle out of all 6 stitches So you'll have the 4 slip stitches on the left-hand needle still, and the 2 recently knitted stitches will be here at the back, and then you slide your right-hand needle into those 2 knitted stitches. And now you're ready to knit the 4 slipped stitches of that column. So there you go. That's the same action without a cable needle. Now I'll show you how to do a right leaning cable. So this column of 4 stitches has been slowly moving right, and it needs to move across another 2 stitches to the right. And I'll show you first of all how to do that with a cable needle. So what you would do, you knit right up to where you want to work the cable. You put these first 2 stitches on a cable needle and you're going to hold it at the back like that. And then you're going to knit the next 4 stitches. And then you're going to knit the 2 stitches that were on the cable needle. So there, we've completed the right leaning cable and it's moved right across. Without a cable needle, when you're ready to cable your stitches, you will move the yarn to the front. And with the yarn at the front, you'll slip the first 2 stitches onto the right-hand needle purlwise. And then you're going to bring the yarn across the front of those 2 stitches and back around to the back. And then you can see that strand there. And then you're going to knit the 4 stitches of that column. Then what you're going to do is bring the yarn around to the front, turn your needle over, and with the left-hand needle, you're going to slip the tip into those 2 slipped stitches. And again, you pull all of the stitches up to the tips of the needle. You don't pull on your yarn because that'll unravel this first stitch. You make sure there's no tension on that. And you hold the base of the stitches. You pull your right-hand needle out of the full 6 stitches. The 2 slipped ones will remain on the back needle. And then you put the right-hand tip through the 4 that have recently been worked. And then you put the yarn to the back and you knit the 2 slipped stitches. So there, that's it without a cable needle. So there's one other cable in this design that you can also do without a cable needle, although it takes a couple of steps, and that's this cross here, there, which is actually got 10, it has 10 stitches in it. It has 4 in the column that goes across the top, 4 in the column that goes underneath, and 2 purl stitches that are in between those columns of knit stitches. And that happens only a few times in the design. It always happens like a cross inside this circle. I don't need to do it here. It's wrong to do it here in the pattern, but I can do it here to show you. So I've got my 4 knit stitches here, this column, 2 purl stitches in the middle, and 4 knit stitches on the other side. So this column, it has to go underneath this column here, and it's all about just rearranging the stitches. I keep the yarn to the front of the work and I slip the 4 knit stitches of that column onto my right hand needle purlwise, and then the 2 purl stitches also purlwise, and then I am going to pass the yarn across the front of my needle. You can see that strand there, and I'm going to knit the left 4 stitches. If I go back here, you can see that it's the left side that is going to cross right over the top. So that's why my yarn here is held at the front of these stitches. And now I'm going to knit those 4 knit stitches. Okay, so the first 6 stitches have been slipped. The yarn's held at the front. I knit the second 4 stitches. Now I need to get these 2 purl stitches have to be here. So I've just knitted that section and I need to next knit the 2 purl stitches. So I go to the back of the work and I slip my left hand needle into the back of the 2 slipped purl stitches. Again, I pull everything right up to the end of the needles. I don't pull on my yarn or these stitches here will unravel. I pull my right hand needle out of the 6 stitches. The 2 purl stitches will stay on my left-hand needle, and I slip my right-hand needle back into the 4 knit stitches that I've just worked. Okay, so now I've got those purl stitches unworked on the left-hand needle. I bring my yarn around to the front and I work those purl stitches. 1, 2. Okay, so that's great. I have that left cable knitted going over to the right. That's this one here. I've just worked my 2 purl stitches, which are in between, and now I have to bring this strand of 4 stitches behind and knit them here. And that's easy to do. I've got my yarn in the front. I just move my yarn in the front again because it's easier. And I'm going to slip my left-hand needle into the 4 stitches that are unworked still, there, like that. I move all of these stitches right up to the tips. Really important not to pull on this yarn or this stitch will unravel. I quickly slip out my right-hand needle from all of those stitches and back into the 4 knit stitches, and then the 2 purl stitches, bringing them across like this. So here I've got my original 4 knit stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, my 2 purl stitches which need to be in the middle. I put the yarn around to the back, and now I knit the 4 knit stitches of the strand or the column that's going to pass underneath, like that. So it's all bunched up at the moment, but you can see that this column is passing underneath, this column is passing across, and if I was to stretch it out, I have 2 purl stitches in between, and that is this. All done without a cable needle, and you can do it much faster. I'm just showing you slowly so you can understand the movement of the stitches.
I'm here with Eleanor from Eleanor Jane's studio, and she's a local artist who combines her passion for painting and for letter writing to create hand-painted stationery. And these days we're constantly communicating through texts and emails, so very fast forms of communication. So what draws you to the good old handwritten letter, and how did that passion then become a business?
Well, I've always loved letters. When I was little, I had pen friends from the Brownies. I moved house, so I wrote to the friends I left behind. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I wrote to Father Christmas. And I even had a pen friend who was a fairy who left me a letter every Friday in the garden, which was magical.
That was your mum, right?
That was my mum.
Got a good mum.
I've got a brilliant mum. And I just kept going. When I grew up, I still have pen friends from several different countries, and there's just something so nice about a physical letter in the post. You know that if you get a letter, somebody has sat down and spent time writing it, and it just shows they care about you. And your texts and emails are convenient and fast, but a couple of weeks ago I sent some pressed flowers in a letter, and you just can't do that in a text.
Yeah.
And when we went into lockdown, I couldn't get to stationery shops to buy stationery, so I've always drawn, and I thought I'd have a go at making my own. And I loved it. It was brilliant. So I sort of created a tiny, tiny studio in my house, and I opened an online shop because I wanted to share what I was doing with other people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was wonderful. And I'm always drawing. I'm not going to stop drawing. So I'm constantly getting more and more things that I want to turn into stationery. And I started with letter sets, and then I've added to that. I've got greetings cards, correspondence cards, notebooks, mugs, pencil tins, loads.
Yeah, all covered in your hand-painted drawings.
All covered in my hand-painted drawings.
And where do you get your inspiration from?
From nature. A lot of my inspiration is from the outside, especially the sea. I do like drawing inside as well, like very detailed interior things, but mostly it's outside. I'm very fussy about the paper that I use, so I tend to print everything myself at home. I want something that has a nice texture and is a bit sturdy so that it feels luxurious.
Yeah.
I print stuff at home. I scan everything into the computer and then print it myself. I recently changed the paper, so it's a recycled one, but it has a lovely texture, which I think is brilliant.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I like the little detail of the wool on the...
Yes, I always make sure I have something on the envelope flap because I like a decorated envelope, but sometimes it takes time, and it's nice to know there's something interesting in the post box.
I know, they often get ignored. So how about you show us some of your hand-painted cards now, and just tell us the story and the technique behind each design.
So I take a sketchbook with me everywhere. I like to draw when I'm out. Like I said, I'm inspired by the natural world, and so when I go for a walk, if we stop, I will probably be drawing because it's so inspiring. So for example, this one I drew, we went to Cadgwith last summer, and there were some fishing boats drawn up on the beach, which were beautiful. I just had to draw them.
Yeah.
And it turned out, I thought, really well. So I decided I had to make a card out of it, which is this one here.
They're gorgeous.
Thank you.
That's super cute. And there's another little boat on the envelope as well.
There's always something. So that was Cadgwith. And then also in Cornwall, I stayed in a house that had a tin mine just at the bottom of the garden. I love drawing things that are made of stone, a little bit tumble down, which this one definitely was. It was a little bit wonky. And again, I was really pleased with that, so I turned that into a card.
That's really pretty. And I love how you managed to do the clouds as well.
The clouds are an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they turn out well, sometimes they don't.
What's next?
So next is actually something that I have drawn from imagination. When I get back into my studio, I sometimes have to create cards for specific reasons. So my dad needed a Father's Day card. He loves dragons. So I created this for him. But then it turned out quite well, so I decided to try and sell it as well. Actually, quite a lot of my designs started off because I needed a card for someone in my family or a friend. So that was that one. And then this one is partially based on a dresser which I have in my studio, but I've embellished it a little bit, so it's become more of a dream dresser. Yep. It's got lots of yarn, bolts of cloth, knitting needles, crochet hooks.
Little teddy bear on the top as well. You're really good at just adding those little delicate details that make it come alive. It's lovely.
I do love little details, yeah.
Yeah, and the alarm clock on the envelope. Great.
So that's my watercolour, but then I also use lino print, which is very different. So you get a piece of lino, you carve away everything that you don't want to be printed, and you're left with a raised image that you cover with ink, and then you press that into paper or card, and that creates an image like that. Again, this one I created specifically for an event I was doing because it was on Exmoor, and I wanted something that was relevant to where I was. But then this one, I don't take lino out with me to carve when I'm going for a walk, but I went to the Dunster by Candlelight event and I was captivated by this one window. It had a Christmas tree in it and it was beautiful. I couldn't get the image out of my head and I thought this was the best way to recreate it. So I made a Christmas card.
Yeah. This looks really difficult. How long does it take to carve one of these?
It's something that I've done more recently. Watercolour is something I've done for a long time. Yeah. Lino takes me a little bit longer. Then I've also done things like a mug. I had this image in my head that I wanted on an enamel mug because I love them. It's turned into looking a little bit like my boyfriend and I, which wasn't intentional, really but I do like that.
I like that too. Okay, and you also make pencil cases?
Yes. So I wanted a pencil tin, and this is an image that I created for that. It's again, essentially me.
Yeah.
Because that's just what I love to do. And it seemed like a nice image to have.
Beautiful.
I like to create things that I want to use.
Yeah.
So again, I got somebody local to print some images on coasters for me. Again, I use them all the time.
Knitting needles and a work in progress. That's great. Well, speaking of knitting needles, we are in a woolen mill, which is going to be packed with passionate knitters and crocheters and spinners and the like. So do you have any cards designed especially for fibercraft enthusiasts?
I do, yes. I'm a crocheter. I've noticed that a lot of events you tend to get a lot of things for knitters and not so much for other fibre crafts.
Yep.
So I tried to cover a few different things. Obviously I do have a knitting one, but I've also done crochet, and this one's a more generic one. I have just some yarn, some knitting needles, and then I've even done a spinning one.
Oh, gorgeous. And these are all printed in your studio?
Yes.
Wow, okay. So a lot of work goes into every single card.
And then more recently, it's something I've wanted to do for quite a long time. I've taken some knitted and crocheted swatches, and like with the lino printing, I've put ink on them and then transferred them onto cards so you get the image of the stitches. So this is a brand new thing. I've never had these in an event before, but I love them.
They're amazing. So do you do cables as well? Do you try out different designs?
I do cables as well. They are less distinct than I would like them to be, but you can just about see them.
Yeah. Well, you're very creative, and I appreciate that you've got a section for us fibercraft enthusiasts as well. And I haven't written letters in a while. I do like postcards, so I think I'm going to have to get myself some later on. Thanks very much for sharing your work.
Thank you very much.
I'll say goodbye.
Bye.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that little makers segment with Eleanor. Personally, I fell in love with her little paintings and sketches. So after the interview, I actually bought a few of her coasters, and I also bought a set of her letter writing paper decorated with knitting needles and yarns because I think they're adorable.
They are.
If you enjoy these segments and you would like to see more, then please support the show by becoming a Fruity Knitting patron. Each episode requires us to invest a lot of time and resources, and while we keep these videos free for everybody to watch on YouTube, we can only afford to do so when enough of you, our viewers, come together to support the show as Fruity Knitting patrons. So the way to do this is by visiting patreon.com/fruityknitting, where you can sign up as a Hebridean or a Merino or Shetland patron and support the show financially by making a small monthly donation. And that donation can start as low as $5 a month. Now, $5 in its own is not that much, but when enough of our viewers come together to support the channel in this way, it adds up to a steady and reliable income that allows Mum and I to continue producing new episodes for your viewing pleasure.
Which we love to do.
Yes. So visit patreon.com/fruityknitting to become a Hebridean, Merino or Shetland patron. And thank you so much for watching the show, and thank you for your support.
Yes, thank you very much. And we're really happy to also announce that Melanie Berg, our interview guest, is kindly offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 25% discount on all of her self-published patterns. That's both on her Ravelry shop and on her own online store. And she has well over 200 designs available, so I think it's a fantastic offer. And Melanie is also offering a 20% discount on her online video knit class. So the knit class is available in both German and English, and the discount applies to the English version, which is great news for our very international audience. So many, many thanks to Melanie for her generosity.
So we're back in under construction, and I'm still working on my Alcoves sweater designed by Rachel Ilsley from Unwind Knitwear, specifically for our Fruity Knitting Sport yarn range, which I think is great. It's a cable design which works very well with our round yarns.
I just want to quickly interrupt you to say I feel so lucky that we have these great designers making beautiful designs with our yarn.
Yeah, we are pretty lucky.
Okay, keep going.
All right. So Alcoves has been in the test knitting phase these past few months, and I have to tell you, I'm definitely not a good test knitter because I'm too slow. I can't keep up with the deadlines. We have been swamped with work, to be fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is of no consequence for you because despite my lack of speed, Rachel Ilsley has published her gorgeous design, and it's available now on Ravelry and Payhip. And of course, we're offering the matching kits on our website, artisanfibers.com. Now, the original design, as well as the one that I'm making, use white opal, which has turned out to be by far our most popular colour. So it's sold out right now, but we do expect the next delivery to arrive in about 1.5 weeks' time. So you do have the option to pre-order it if this is your preferred colour.
It is really, really beautiful. You may not see because we've got lighting on here, but when I look at it here, and I'll try to get a photo, the colours are so pretty. And sorry, I'm in love with it myself. But I ordered triple the amount this time because it is proving to be by far our favorite, the most popular colour.
Yeah. Alcoves is covered in elegant cable panels inspired by ornately carved alcoves. So the design alludes to beautiful old world architecture, and personally it reminds me of the gorgeous wooden carvings we saw all over Bovey Castle. Alcoves has a drop shoulder construction with 3 cable panels on the front and on the back, along with cables running down both sleeves. And in these pictures, Rachel is modelling the sweater in size 3, giving her 30 centimetres of positive ease. Now I'm aiming for a tighter fit, so I'm knitting size 2. So this has been my first cable knit for a very long time, and I have to say I'm finding it very fun and engaging.
Hold it like this because you put your hands over the beautiful pattern.
Can't stop touching it.
Hold it here and here. There.
Anyway, it's been very fun and engaging to work on, and the cable pattern does look fairly complicated, which I find very satisfying to the eye, but it's not that difficult after you've practiced it for a few rounds. I managed to knit all of these cables without a cable needle. Each panel is framed by 2 simple 4-stitch cables that twist in opposite directions. They're easy to knit without a cable needle since you only cross 2 stitches over 2 stitches at a time. Further in are these slightly wider 6-stitch cables, but these are also easy because again, you're only crossing 2 over 2 stitches at a time. What stands out is how every few rows these cables come together to form an eye-catching 7-stitch cable in the centre. And when they meet, you cross the first 2 stitches over the last 5 stitches, which is slightly trickier without a cable needle. So Alcoves has a top-down drop shoulder construction with a little bit of a twist. After knitting the front and back pieces separately, you join them to knit the rest of the body and the round. And at that point, I was expecting to maybe cast on some underarm stitches, which is the normal way of doing it. However,
I'm going to help you.
Thank you. However, the instructions said to immediately join the front and back pieces together without casting on any extra stitches by doing a 3-needle bind-off. And that meant that you actually cast off stitches along the edges. So this really confused me in the beginning, and I had to reread the pattern a few times until I understood the concept, and actually I think it's really cool. So before you cast off and join the front and back pieces together, in my case, this width was 54 centimetres, which would equal a circumference of 108 centimetres. My bust is a lot smaller, it's only 88 centimetres, so that leaves 20 centimetres of positive ease, which I don't need. So what the pattern does, by doing a 3-needle bind-off, you effectively reduce the circumference of the body before you start knitting the body in the round. And at the same time, this cast off section forms the beginning of your sleeve. And I think this is so cool because it means it's a really elegant way of removing some of that underarm fabric that you can get with the bulk that you can get with drop shoulder constructions, but it's still drop shoulder. How common is it? Have you come across this construction before?
I don't think so.
Yeah, for me it was really new, so I'm quite impressed, but maybe you know it already. So
do you know what? I can see in our monitor that you can't see, because this is a light colour. We've got a lot of lights on, that you can't see the colour and you can't see the cables so well. So we really, really hope that our photos that we'll insert will show it to you better.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I did. You can see I've joined the pieces together, and now all I have to do is knit the body and the round. I might add in some waist shaping, but I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see. So that's it. And coming up now is our feature interview with the German knitwear designer Melanie Berg, who we're very thrilled to welcome back to the podcast. And on top of that, we're delighted to announce that Melanie will be joining us for an Austrian Alps knitting retreat from the 18th to the 23rd of October this year. And so you can go check all of that out on our website, artisan-retreats.com. Melanie will teach 3 workshop classes. The first is about the language of colour, learning how small accents can transform a piece and how to play with layering, fading, and to create tension. Building on this foundation, we'll move on to mosaic knitting and even create our own designs, because there's no better way to make a knitted piece truly your own. Finally, we will explore the power of texture, using a brand new sweater pattern designed by Melanie, using our Fruity Knitting Sport yarn range as an example. As always, you are welcome to bring your non-knitting partner along for the adventure. Outside of the workshops, we have plenty of fun non-knitting activities planned, including a cultural evening with live traditional Tyrolean music and dance, a day trip to the beautiful old town of Innsbruck with a tour of the Habsburg Palace and the unique court church. A ferry ride across Lake Gaughan will give us a chance to relax, knit, and take in the stunning views. And of course, we'll take the gondola up into the mountains to enjoy breathtaking autumn landscapes, with the option to hike or simply ride back down. We will be staying at the family-run Riesa Resort and Spa, just a 5-minute walk away from Lake Gaughan. Every day you will wake up to the stunning mountain views. During your free time, you can take a swim in one of the Riesa's many pools, go for a run or a walk along Lake Gaughan, or borrow a bike to explore the surrounding mountain trails. If you'd prefer to take it easy, why not enjoy a massage instead? The food here is absolutely top-notch, with an extravagant breakfast and lunch buffet and 5-course dinners. As always, Fruity Knitting patrons received early access to registration starting yesterday, and today we're opening up the remaining spots to all of our viewers. So if you would like to join, then head over to artisanretreats.com and complete the registration form.
Coming up next is our interview with Melanie Berg. Thanks so much for spending time with us again.
And we can't wait to see you again in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Well, all right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? I'll do anything you say. It's just got to be that way. Well, all right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? Anything you say I'll do, as long as it's me and you. All that I am asking, all I want from you, just love me like I love you, and it won't be hard to do. Well, all right, okay, you win.
You're on?
I'm in love with you.
Welcome to
Well,
Fruity
alright.
Knitting. I am so excited to welcome back Melanie Berg. Melanie has recently released her new book, Shawl, and with it she's on a mission to take the frustration out of knitting and to make knitting your ultimate oasis. So apart from the beautiful designs in the book also introduces a brilliant knitting GPS system for reading patterns. And this is something that developed from Melanie's own need for mental clarity during her cancer treatment. Melanie has also launched a new online knit class to give knitters clear guidance and help them achieve more professional results with their knitting. So I think that is definitely something a lot of people are going to want. It's really great to have you back on Fruity Knitting, so thanks for coming.
Thank you, Andrea. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover. So we'll get straight into it. During your cancer treatment, you experienced chemo brain, and that made following complex patterns way more difficult. And out of that challenge, you co-created row maps with Chad Lewis. So can you first of all just talk about your collaboration with Chad Lewis and then how row maps work as a type of GPS for knitters with brain fog, ADHD, or just general mental fatigue?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Andrea. It was in summer of 21 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, totally out of the blue. Like, that was very unexpected. And I was 41 years old then. And I kept working, I kept writing patterns, but I very quickly noticed during treatment that my concentration was not as it used to be. I would just struggle with easy tasks, really. And I remember one very concrete project, I would just mess it up completely. And I only noticed this a couple of days later. I thought, okay, everything was good. But then when I looked at it again, it wasn't. So that gave me a new sense of awareness about what knitters who are in an extreme situation, maybe in terms of health or in terms of insomnia or grief or anything that takes concentration away from us, would need, because I very clearly wanted them to still be able to knit, because knitting does so many good things for us. In
therapeutic wise, it's really great.
Yes, right. But even this extra bit of concentration that you need can sometimes be too much. So at this point of time, Chad Lewis comes in, and he has since become a very good friend of mine over this row maps project. And he is volunteering as a knitting teacher at a cancer center in Toronto, where he works with patients and experiences firsthand, their extra needs in that challenging time. And he wanted to develop a system for them to make it easier to follow patterns and gain more confidence. Like, even if you lose control in your life because, you are maybe undergoing chemo, you still have that knitting part where you are still in charge. And that is not only good.
It's stabilizing.
It's stabilizing, right? And it gives you a sense of you are still important, you are still useful, you are still someone who can take decisions. So we got into contact, and together we developed the idea for row maps. Yeah, that is the long story short.
Cool. And we've got them here, and there's a little book here. This also comes as part of this book. So we'll get into that. But my main question that comes to mind is, can row maps work for complex patterns as well? Or are there limits with row maps? And also, for instance, so we've got this beautiful memory code here, which looks quite complex geometrically. What would be the biggest challenge in mapping a design like this?
Yes. So row maps are a way to make an existing pattern easier. It's basically a tick-off list and a row-by-row list for your project. For example, think of a project that you made in the past. At one point, maybe there was a sentence saying, and now repeat chart A 23 times.
Yeah, and at the same time.
Right. Right. So this is just one tiny sentence in the pattern, but it turns out in your knitting to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
So here the row maps come into play because they map out each single row in that pattern so that you don't lose track, you don't...
and you're not holding multiple things in your mind at the same time.
You just need to have the row map to hold these things for you.
Yeah.
Yes, and let's take a look at how a row map looks like. For example, here I'm having one for a very... easy design. It's just a hat, and you can see it's really just a few rows, and you can tick them off, or rounds actually, and you can tick them off as you go. And then here at this part, you are finished already. So this would be a very easy example for a row map.
Yeah.
Of course, coming back to your original question, do row maps work for more complex designs? That was something Chad and I had to find out first. And originally we only offered row maps for shawls because they are easy to map out. But
because you're not grading, is that the main reason?
For example, you're not grading and you don't have these multiple things happening at the same time. At least how I write my shawls, it's often work this part and then work that part and then work that part. So you have a clear structure and it's not too complicated anyway, but still the row map adds this row by row tick off feeling.
I can also see that it keeps you in track, because I can imagine if you're not having good concentration, you put your project down or you're interrupted by somebody and then you come back and then you've got all this mental work to think, oh, now have I done that? And now can I count this? And
Absolutely. And we all know that feeling, like the telephone rings or the postman is there or your kids or parents need something from you. And then maybe sometimes you just get back 2 weeks later. So how should you know where you left your work? So with one glance at the row map, you instantly know where you are.
This is great for people who like to do multiple projects at once.
Right. Yes. I've never thought about that, but actually... that's a good idea.
Okay, so that's
that is the easy one. Yeah. Let's take a look at a row map that is a bit more complicated. You just showed this shawl. It's the memory code shawl, and there are more things happening at the same time. It's a top-down triangle shawl, so you have increases going on at various points in the pattern. At the same time, you have the knit pearl textured pattern, and all of these things are there to remember. And since the right side, it's reversible. I think the right side looks a bit more crisp, but still the wrong side is beautiful as well.
I got it the wrong way around?
But don't worry. That's the good thing about reversible patterns. But since the right and the wrong side look so similar, it's especially hard to tell where you are. So in this case, the row map is telling you that. And if we take a look at the pattern, just a quick go through, you can see that it's a lot of text, right?
Definitely.
And that is because of the construction of the piece. It's a top-down triangular shawl that starts in the center of the upper edge. And you have 6 increases per each right side and wrong side combination. So the stitch count grows super quickly, and that makes your rows very long. And of course that reflect, the written instructions reflect these long rows. So without the row map, you would constantly have to make sure where you are, and all of this looks rather similar at a glance, right? So let's now take a look at the row map. And you can see that it's just one page, actually. This is everything that you need. And since the rows in memory code are so long, the number of rows needed to complete the project is not that big. And that is the reason why the row map is relatively short. You can see that there is letters indicating the colorways. By the way, this is the German version of the row map, but it's also available in English. So you have the letters indicating the colors, you have the row numbers, you have the stitch count, and then every once in a while there's a helpful little note telling you what happens. Not keep going, but we have a note at the end. Weave in your ends and enjoy and be proud. So. Yes.
Oh, great.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so then we've got a jumper here. You've also row mapped that one, or mapped that one out.
Yes.
And is this top down?
This is a top-down construction, and it's the European shoulder construction. I'm not sure if you've tried that out in the past. It has a shoulder seam that is slightly shifted towards the back. Yes, so it's not on top of your shoulder, it's moved towards the back.
And that's really nice the way you've done that, going down like that. You know, how it's sort of like a relief coming out. Looks
yes,
pretty.
And it has a very good fit on the shoulders because the seam is not on top of the shoulders, but on top of the shoulders there's just plain stockinette stitch, and it moves. How to say
it falls on the body.
It follows your body.
Yeah.
Right. So Chad is a very creative person and one who's very ambitious at the same time. And I was always saying, the row maps, they are great for shawls. Let's stick with shawls because it's relatively easy. But he was, let's try out a jumper. Let's see how we can make that work. And so he came up with a brilliant system within the row map to map the pattern out with all the things that are happening at the same time. Just think here you have increases, for example, or there are short rows at the shoulders, or how the upper back is shaped. And then at some point the colorwork pattern comes into play. So all of these things are in the row map as well. So this here again would be the pattern. There's just a couple of pages with all the instructions. And then if we take a look at the row map, again, you can see that it's rather condensed, and all the different sizes. Like, for example, Sticky Sweet is the name of that sweater. It comes with 7 sizes, and all of these 7 sizes are part of the row map. And that was a...
Was that a challenge?
Well, for me, it would have been impossible to do that, but Chad is really a genius. And he came up with this brilliant idea on how to phrase it, how to make it work as a tick-off list, although there are all these things happening at the same time in different sizes.
Wow. Okay. And then he has tested the row maps in his cancer groups.
Oh, that is a good question. I actually don't know because not all of the people in the cancer group are knitting my patterns.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are beginner knitters who don't even know how to knit at all, and then there are people who bring in their own projects. But all the row maps are tested in my usual test knitting process. So I have all of my designs test knitted, and I give the row map to the test knitters as well. Yeah. And the feedback is tremendous.
That's been good.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, that's super cool. Okay. I'll just give the audience a little look at this beautiful jumper before we move on. This is Sticky Sweet, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, your shawls do all have beautiful, rich colours and textures, and that creates very distinct moods and rhythms. So my next question is, how do you decide between using bold contrasts and subtle blends, and then what kind of technique to use to enhance those colours? Because each one of Melanie's shawls really has its own story.
Well, I actually love that you describe it as mood and rhythm, because that's very much how I go about it in my design process. And to me, actually, color is a huge playground. It's all about freedom because we have so many options, so many possibilities nowadays. I remember when I was a child, there was something my mother used to say to us because, when you're a child, your mother, she sorts out what you wear in the morning, but then at some point of time you are confident.
Allowed to do it yourself.
You like to do it yourself, and then you come up with fun combinations. And my mother used to tell us, I'm going to say it in German, it's Grün und Blau trägt dem Teufel seine Frau. And it means green and blue is what the wife of the devil would wear. So don't do it. And she would get mad at us if we picked something green and blue.
In English, we say blue and green should never be seen.
Oh, see.
That's a sweet version, isn't it? But I like your version better.
It's a bit harsher.
It's like the Grimm's fairy tales.
Right.
Okay.
So, yes. So I wanted to say that we have this huge amount of freedom nowadays to play with colors and to combine them. But at the same time, we want to have a finished piece that still feels harmonious, balanced, wearable that we can integrate into our wardrobe and wear with.
That's not a sight for sore eyes, as my mother would say.
Those mothers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
so do you often have the colours that you need at home? Is that how you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I definitely want to start with the yarn, and I don't want to design into the blue. I want to have the yarn with me to take a look and swatch and try out. But that could also mean that I have a concrete dyer or that I ask a dyer to dye up something new, maybe a fun new combination or a new colorway. Or sometimes I start with existing ones. But the first thing I do is I start swatching to find out, like, how does this yarn behave? What characteristics does it have? And then once I have a basic idea, I start with...
And you're probably putting textures and colours together at the same time.
Right at the beginning, yes. Because, in a design you have both, so you want to make sure both work together.
How they play together. Mm-hmm. And here we've got one, I think, that represents just sort of soft blends. So talk about it. Why did you combine these two textures? And
this is my Super Bloom shawl, and it's actually made with 3 yarns. So these ones here, it's a very harmonious and a bit blurred appearance that this shawl has. And here in this center part and also up here, 2 yarns, 2 very similar yarns are worked up and in alternating rows. And that's what creates this blurred effect. Mm-hmm. If you take a closer look, you can identify that every other row has a bluish touch and every other row a more pink one. Yeah. But there are bits in each colorway that you can also find in the opposite colorway. So that creates this harmonious feeling.
So they're both speckled and they've got the similar kinds of coloured speckles in them.
Yes. And then they also have very strong colour accents, like here this purple or this neon greenish pink, but they blend in nicely into this background. And then here in the lace part, it's also a speckled yarn, and it also carries bits of the colorways that appear here in this garter stitch part. And the idea was to combine 2 different textures. So we have the simple basic garter stitch and then the delicate lace pattern, which is repeated here in the shawl border, just to make things more interesting.
Beautiful. Okay, so then in direct contrast to that, we have this one, which is called Tiny Dots.
10 dots later.
10 dots later.
10 dots later. Because it uses a gradient kit of 10 colorways, actually. And, is that even true? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, yeah, that was true. Good. Yes, so very much in contrast to the shawl that we've just seen, which was soft and gentle. Yeah. This one here uses very strong colorways and also with clear, definite geometric patterns. So it's a very opposite appearance.
And you've used mosaic knitting here too.
Right. It's mosaic knitting, which is a lovely way to play with color without being overwhelmed, because you only ever work one color at a row. There is no stranding and no complicated techniques.
There's no stranding technique. So you're just flipping the other colours and then you do them on the following.
Yes.
Okay, and so you've got very strong colours in stripes here, but it's kind of balanced out because you've done it here with the mosaic pattern and with the grey in between. The grey is actually acting like a soothing binder, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the grey here in the upper part and also in a darker version up here where the cast on is. And these neutrals, you can use them to balance out the stronger contrasts that you might have. So they serve as a canvas, and I would say they contribute to making the design more wearable. Again,
definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Gorgeous. Okay. This one looks very autumnal.
Yes, it's crash season. And this one is all about colors and texture. we're holding it upside down.
Oops.
So if we can just switch it around. Yes, so this actually, it's a plant-dyed yarn. It's Herb and Hue from the Fiber Company, which very sadly won't be available for a long time, but I absolutely fell in love with the colors and the richness and also the stitch definition. And so I wanted to create a shawl that has an harmonious appearance, but that doesn't have colors that has this separating element here between the single stripes, which contributes to making the colors appear more clearer.
That's true, because they are quite muted.
Right.
And if you didn't have this like an outline, they would look dull against each other, wouldn't they?
Yes, exactly. And you can see that we always have the dark gray as the separator, but then once the shawl progresses, once the dark gray stripe has its turn, it has the yellow separators. So this is just another little trick to mix things up and make them.
That's true, because if you had actually had those skeins of yarns held together, they may not be convincing, you know.
Yes.
Or maybe they were for you immediately, but putting this lines in between really makes it work.
Yes, and anything that adds a bit more interest. And that loosens things up a bit and provides this extra bit of, oh, that is interesting. Like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And that was the idea behind Crush Season.
So now we've just got one colour, but it is a very beautiful colour.
Yeah, it's a very striking one. And this is a shawl that relies heavily on the stitch definition of the yarn. So it's a heavily textured pattern, and we have the twisted rib parts here, and then there are lacy bits here. So I wanted to use a yarn that doesn't have too much fuzziness. Like if it had too much fluff,
you wouldn't see that clearly.
Exactly. At the same time, I wanted to use a yarn that has a very lively appearance, and this one here is actually a heathered yarn. That means the basic yarn, the wool, before the dye process, it has brighter fibers and darker fibers. This is John Arbon, isn't it? It's John Arbon.
Which one is it?
It's the Appledore DK.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it's a true favorite.
It's got different breeds in it, and they've used a dark fleece that's undyed, and they've mixed that with a very bright fleece that has been dyed in the fibre. And then it's blended. And then the dye is applied over the heathered yarn. And that makes the yarn appear very lively. Lively. And almost like a hand-dyed effect. Like if you're thinking semi-solids. Yeah. Yes. And because it has the darker parts, or the darker fibers spun in, here in the twisted rib parts, it makes the pattern almost more 3D.
More 3D, like think of focusing on the shadow, like shadow parts and brighter parts that really make this texture pop.
That's true. That's great. Okay, so we've got a couple of jumpers now.
Yes. So this one is the Cloud Break sweater because, I was just thinking rainbows and the clouds break up so the rainbows can come out. And this is actually a fancy pattern. It combines increases, decreases, slip stitch patterns, and some fancy movements like pulling the stitches out of stitches that you made previously. It's not hard to do, but it's a bit unusual. It's not something you do every day. And the interesting part in this sweater is that it's a top-down circular yoke sweater. So it starts here at the upper neckline, and then you work your increases here in the stockinette part. And now this colorwork section, actually, it has a much looser tension. It's about 30% wider than the stockinette part. But I didn't know that up front. So in the first version of this sweater, I ended up with a huge, very strangely looking neckline. And so what I did here in my second try, I reduced the stitch count by around 30%.
Right before you start the colour?
Before, yes. Okay. So you are increasing your stitches so that the circular yoke is shaped. And then here at this point, you're decreasing them. You work the color work pattern, and once that is done, you are increasing them back. So this is a little trick to even out the different tangents between these two.
And the grey
textures.
here looks really beautiful, doesn't it? It's sort of, I mean, these colours are quite muted anyway, but it does also blend it or calm it more.
That's right, and it doesn't look boring because it also has brighter parts and darker parts, so that just contributes to the liveliness and to the richness. It doesn't look flat. Yeah. It doesn't look flat.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. And one more.
Yes. So this one is for anyone who might shy away from using color work in their knitting, because sometimes we just like to stick with one colorway. And here you can see that this entire shirt is worked in the anthracite gray, and then these two neon lines are actually crocheted afterwards as an afterthought. So you don't have to deal with any color work in your calm and cozy knitting, and then in the end, if you like to, you can apply a little detail. And you can actually do that in a very strong color that you would normally not use.
Never wear, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just a tiny accent. The eye is drawn there, but it's not like overwhelming or too much.
Yeah, it's great. Cool.
Yes.
And it's so quick to do too with the crochet. So let's talk now about your new online knit class. It's, I think, an 8-hour video course available in English and German. And from my understanding, your goal was to create just a very clear step-by-step path that removes all of the guesswork from knitting complex designer level pieces. And I think you aimed that at both beginners and rusty knitters. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Our idea was to create an online school for absolute beginners, like we are teaching the knit and purl stitch and how to hold your needles and how to hold the yarn. So the very, very beginnings of knitting. But then we quickly advanced so that rusty knitters who might have had a break from knitting and want to get back into it can discover hacks that they hadn't known before. For instance, we're talking about how to seamlessly pick up stitches, or how to pick up stitches neatly along the seam, or how to even out your tension between knit and purl stitches, because that's something even advanced knitters can struggle with, that you just make your knit stitches so much looser than the purl stitches, and that can result in a wonky looking
fabric.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
Or if you think of lace and how it is made up of different increases and decreases, and both of them can be directional, like you have a right or left leaning decreases, for instance. And we learn the way lace patterns are constructed. Thank you, and the path of the yarn that they follow. And also, there are ways to, in case you make a mistake, to catch that early. That means to read your knitting while you're knitting it, so that you'll notice quickly and you can fix that quickly again.
They're all little things that an experienced knitter either learns over time, or they had their mum or their grandmother sitting with them as a kid. Yes. Telling them these little things. So it's not stuff they're going to find in a book easily.
That's right. Yeah. That is right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And so because it's nice to learn a new technique, but it's even nicer if you can apply it directly on a project. We are jumping right into our first project. So the first is a basic hat, then an easy but fun to make shawl, and then we have the lace shawl. We have a set of fingerless mitts, and mitts are great projects, same as with socks, which we also have, because a lot of different techniques are used on a relatively small project. So these, there's just tons of stuff to learn. And then we are moving to the final project, which is your very first self-made sweater.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, and then they've got a little bit of basic colour work there. You've got starting top down in the round.
That's right. So we learn about the sweater construction, but also about the single techniques. For example, the colour work, and then there's short rows at the shoulders. There's the tubular bind off for the hem. There is the split hem, how that is worked. So all these little bits that are hard to say in just one sentence, but then once you knit the project, you will encounter them, and you're not knitting alone. It's like I'm knitting with you.
Yes, which is lovely. And I imagine they've all got row maps for these projects.
Oh, yes. Thanks for asking. Each project in the knit class is accompanied by a row map, of course.
Cool. And this is a gorgeous design that they can all be very proud of and show off and say, look what I've done.
Yes, and look, this looks so complex, but if you break it down into tiny bits, you can make even a complex appearing pattern as this one approachable and manageable.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do in the knit class.
Lovely. Good. And Melanie is kindly offering our Fruity Knitting patrons a 20% discount off the knit class in English. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And so our final question, Melanie is actually leading the workshops for one of our knitting retreats in the Austrian Alps later this year in October, which we're very, very happy that she's joining us. And what I'm also super excited about is that she's going to design a special retreat sweater with our very own yarns, the Fruity Knitting Sport. So let's start off by you telling us, just giving us an overview of what the participants are going to learn in the workshops, and then can you share some of your initial swatch ideas for the sweater?
Yes, I'm so excited to come to the retreat. Austria is actually one of our favorite holiday locations. So I've been to the region multiple times, and it's wonderful. I'm looking forward very much. So I'm designing a sweater specifically for this workshop, and I'm using your spot weight yarn.
Yeah.
A very beautiful shade, a bright shade that has bits of other colors spun right into it. So again, same as we talked about previously, this adds richness and depth to the color.
This is the white opal
colorway. And there's going to be a texture class that we'll do at the retreat. So we learn lots of things about textures, and I want to show you my design process here in this piece. So I started by swatching out a very basic ribbing and stockinette just to get a feeling for how this yarn behaves. And then I desperately wanted to do something with bubbles because I've not done bubbles for a long time. So I tried out this bubble pattern, but I found it the yarn is so delicate. So I thought the pattern needs a bit more openness and not such a hard stripe here. So next I played around with the bubble placement, I tried to loosen it up a bit, but it still didn't feel right. So finally I came up with this idea with the vertical stripes and then the bubbles as in a wheat plant. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. So I fell in love with this idea and took it to the sweater. If you wonder why this pattern here looks a bit different than here on the swatch, that is the blocked version. So this still needs some blocking, and then the look will drastically improve and become neater and cleaner. Yeah. Yes, so this is the texture class, and there's going to be plenty of opportunity to play with different yarns and textures.
And I have to say, I love how our yarn looks.
It's amazing.
I'm allowed to say that.
It has a wonderful
really
stitch
great
definition.
Yeah, it looks really great here. And there's just these soft colours, pastel-y colours coming through the cream.
Yes.
Looks really good.
I can't wait to see the final sweater. Like, I have a vision, of course, but then once the first time you slip in, it's a special moment. Okay,
so I think you've paired the texture very well with the colour, and I guess you'll be talking about exactly that, pairing colour and texture. So
yes, that's going to be another big part of the workshop, because there are so many insecurities when it comes to colour combinations, how to pick colours for an existing project. Oftentimes knitters tell me they were happily knitting along on their project and it was so much fun, but then in the end they never wore the piece. And I think that is so sad, because all the working time that went into this, and we really want to wear our pieces. So how can we make sure that you can make confident color choices? That is one part of the color aspect. And then also, what different kinds of way are there to marry yarn and color? Think of the dye process, think speckled dyes, solid
fiber contents and
content, how different fibers soak up the dye in a different way. And then it's about finding patterns like actual knitting patterns, like stitch patterns, that best let
show off the color,
characteristics.
show off the color
Yes.
and the texture of that yarn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all the things that we learn about color. So we have the textured part, we have the color part, and then we bring them together in a class that's maybe one of my favorite ones. It's about how to design your own mosaic shawl. And that's where I challenge the participants' creativity, because they get to, first we learn what a mosaic pattern is and how it's constructed. And then you get into designing your own patterns. Like there's going to be sketching, there's going to be trying things out. And then also, of course, you knit your pattern that you designed previously. And I'll show you how to use your very own pattern and integrate it into your first self-designed shawl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Yes. I want to come back to this. So this is going to be, what is the silhouette for this?
It's going to be very loose. It's worked in pieces, so it's not worked in the round. And there's going to be the front and the back. And this here is the back. I started here with the upper neckline. And then there are increases moving down here for the shoulder.
Slopey shoulder,
for the shoulder slope, right? And then it's going to be worked flat up to a certain length, which I haven't yet reached. And then the front part is going to be made very similar, just that we have the neckline. That
it's going to be rounder.
It's going to be a round neckline, and of course it's a bit lower than the back. Yeah. And then they are joined here at the shoulder seams, but the sides remain open, so there's not going to be sleeves. Instead, there's going to be a fun way to button them down the side.
Okay, yes. So it's sort of like a half vest, half poncho, perhaps.
Yes, right.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to do something else, just move into a bit of a different direction.
And that looks great, because this is really quite a canvas for quite a strong pattern. Yes. That is, it needs like a flat material to see it.
Right. Imagine this being done in a heavily variegated yarn, for example, or in a very fuzzy yarn.
Yeah.
Like all of this clarity, all of this great definition would just get lost.
Yeah. Okay, that's really exciting. Well, I can't wait. I can't wait to
knit
it myself. So it's been wonderful to have you again on
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, it's always a great pleasure to be here. Yes.
Let's say goodbye to the audience. Bye.
Bye.
Well, all right. Okay. You win.
Okay.
I'm in love with you. Well, all right.
Do we need to do it?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You win.
Should I do this?
Baby, one thing more. If you're gonna be my man, sweet baby.